Welcome to another episode of Over the Should podcast, where we ditch the shoulds and expectations put on our life so that we can live a life that we actually love. Today, I am beyond excited to have Erica Rooney on the show. I consider her a personal friend. She had me on her podcast when I was just up and coming, which was delightful of her. She is a dynamic executive coach, an insightful keynote speaker, and a former C-suite executive, so she knows what she's talking about. Erica's passionate about helping individuals break free from the chains that hold them back. She has a unique blend of leadership, empowerment, and organizational development expertise. She inspires people to unlock the potential that they have within them and lead with purpose. So I'm so delighted to have you here, Erica. What did I leave out of your introduction? Because I know you do all of the things.
Oh my goodness, Pamela. I mean, I'm a wife and a mom, right? Those are
Mhm.
two of my biggest favorite roles. I've got two little kids. They're 6 and 7. Podcast host, author of the book Glass Ceilings and Sticky Floors. Other
Mhm.
than that, you nailed it. But I'm so excited to be here and to get to hang out with you again.
Same, same, same. And on that topic of your book coming out November 12th, which knowing you, it is everything you could hope for and more from a gender equality perspective, learning how to speak up. But for those who want to hear a little bit more about you right now, your podcast has the same name, Glass Ceilings, Sticky Floors, and it's good. And you've got some incredible guests.
And
Yeah.
Pamela's one of them.
Yes. Yes. I
But
am one of
yes,
them.
it
Yeah.
is. It's the Glass Ceilings and Sticky Floor podcast. And y'all, what we do is we really dive into shattering the limiting beliefs and toxic behaviors to uncover infinite possibilities. So a
Mhm.
lot of what we talk here, Pamela, on your podcast, all about like getting rid of the shoulds,
Mhm.
shedding the shoulds, letting go of those societal expectations. We talk a lot about that on the podcast, but we also talk about the other limiting beliefs that keep women stuck, like imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
perfectionism, fear, burnout, human giver syndrome, like you name it, it is in there. And
Mhm.
it is so fun. The book is really a compilation of the science of the brain because I love to know why things are the way they are. And I want like real scientific proof. And then the other half are different chapters of different sticky floor stories that I gathered from my own life and then also from women like you who are on my podcast.
Mhm. I love that so much. It's been so long since we've actually had a chance to catch up. So, how about you start us all off with what's going on in your life right now? You've got a book
Oh,
coming
yeah.
out. What else? What else is happening for you, Erica?
Well, what's going on in my life is because the day we're recording this, which is spooky season, Halloween, I only left corporate on October 1st. So tomorrow will be my 1 month anniversary of full on into believing in myself and trusting in myself and being okay
Mm-hmm.
not having those golden handcuffs on, which it's wild to think about. It's crazy, honestly, because I just never thought that I wouldn't be a corporate girl. I always thought I would be in corporate. And so to be out here on my own, like it's a lot of growth is what's going on. It's a lot of figuring things out. It's a lot of daily like high highs and low lows. So that's kind of where I am, but just doing the whole kid thing. And I'm really trying to figure out what do I want my daily life to look like going forward?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the name of this podcast, like I have lived every year before this according to what I think I should be doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? What I think I should do as a wife, as a mom, as an executive. I should be in my desk 9 to 5. I should be doing all these things for my kids. And so now I'm really exploring like, what do I even want my daily schedule to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I've established and that I've been able to stick to is that I don't want to work after my kids get off school. And so when they come home at 3 o'clock, like I am done now. And just being able to step away from like straddling corporate and trying to do everything else and trying to be a mom and trying to look good in a bikini all at the same
Mm-hmm.
time and only focusing like on me and what matters to me, it's such a freeing time for me,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Okay, so walk me through that because I have so many folks who are listening who want to also like dismantle and uproot, and they're looking for that quantum leap moment. Recent podcast that you had was a very good episode. So kind of walk us through what that quantum leap moment was. What did you tell yourself, and how did you decide to ditch the golden handcuffs, which are super appealing?
I tell people all the time, they're really beautiful, but they hurt.
Mhm.
And, you know, for me, I woke up on a Wednesday and I was done. Like I was over it, done. And that's not to say like I just woke up one day and I was over it.
Right.
right? Like I had been getting all of these little nudges from the universe that I wasn't in the right place. But you know, we all do is we
Mhm.
get real good at ignoring those nudges. And I ignored them for a long time. But I also leaned into them. And the way I leaned into it was staying in corporate and starting my podcast, staying in corporate and doing coaching, staying in corporate and growing my speaking business. And
Mhm.
so I was very, very busy for a long time. And when it came to my happiness levels, I found that I was most happy when I was coaching. I was most
Mhm.
happy when I was speaking. I was most happy when I was with the people who were doing all those things. And I was miserable in corporate, right? Like I would lay in bed just dreading having to sit down at my laptop, dreading opening my emails,
Yeah.
and absolutely loathing Slack. And to be honest, like I couldn't tell you what that thing was. It was a tiny little thing, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back, whatever that was, that led me to just say, you know what? I think I'm done. But I share all that because if you are looking to uproot and if you are looking to switch gears, the way I like to approach it is like head in the clouds, boots on the ground.
Mhm.
So dream big, but also be smart. Like we got kids, we got a mortgage. Like we can't just quit our job because we feel like it, you
Mhm.
know? And the day I decided to resign and walk away, I didn't just wake up and do it that day, but I also had years in the making to lead me up to that moment where
Mhm.
I'd been meeting with my financial planner, I'd been having conversations with my husband. So it wasn't a total like out of the blue situation.
Right. So let me ask you a really hard question, and it's one that I experienced myself. You are coaching women on ditching burnout and not becoming resentful and ditching overwhelm while also feeling resentful in your corporate career and struggling with the burnout and probably the Sunday scaries. How do those two worlds coexist? And then how do you help somebody really decide it's time and they have the permission slip that they need to stop the burnout, to make the changes they need to make?
Mm. Well, it's not like it's a light switch. You know, it's not like you can turn it off and be like, well, I recognize that I'm overwhelmed, and so I'm just not going to be. You know, like it takes a process.
Mm.
And for me, while I was overwhelmed and miserable in corporate, I was so lit up and loving my time with my clients, loving my time on my podcast that
Yeah.
that became like a passion project for me. And I remember like my husband would come out in the weekends, you know, to our living room and I'd be click clacking away on my keyboard doing stuff for my business. And he's like, "What are you doing? Working? Like, why are you working?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. This is like my stuff. Like, I'm loving it. I'm so exciting. I'm making this document. I'm making that workbook." And it really was exciting for me to do that. So when I talk about like this overwhelm, yes, I had it in corporate, but the more I leaned into what did light me up, the less I felt it in corporate.
Hmm.
And so as I started putting the things that I was teaching others into practice myself, right? Like boundary setting and, you know, how you check your email and how you structure a meeting and all of those things, I was slowly applying them in my own life. And
Right.
so if you go back to like 2020, 2019, that Erica would have never logged off without a zero clear inbox of emails, right?
Mhm.
A month ago, when I was still in corporate, I was completely fine closing my laptop at 4, right? And walking away. I removed the email from my phone. I removed Slack from my phone, you know? And so I started setting those boundaries. What I will also say is there's a little bit of like detachment from corporate, you know, because I was emotionally already checked out.
Right.
Um, and so for me, that's kind of how that happened and I think why I was able to clearly create those boundaries.
Mhm. That is so interesting. And I just want to talk about your former role then for a second, and not go into the weeds of the good and the bad, but rather from the perspective of I work with so many women who feel like they cannot uninstall Microsoft anything or Slack from their phones, that they have to be connected. And if they aren't, they're going to have some kind of penalization in the morning when they come in, whether that's an inbox full of emails that need to be taken care of or they've missed something important. So, in your former role as a chief people officer, how would you tell employees to present a case to be able to disconnect?
So expectation setting is huge. right? And as a chief people officer, that was probably one of the topics that I talked about the most because that is always where there's conflict, right?
Mhm.
Whether a manager isn't happy with your performance or you're not happy with your manager's level of feedback or involvement, it's all about expectations. And
Mhm.
I remember I shifted my way of approaching email from checking my email to doing my email, right? Because it's so, I mean, how often do we check email? 80,000 times a day. Anytime you get 1 minute, you're in an email. Anytime you're in a meeting, you're that's on Zoom, you're multitasking and you're in an email. I changed my way and I only went into my email inbox 3 times a day.
Mm.
Morning, 1 hour at lunch, and then an hour at the end of the day to clean things up. And there's a whole system that I have for that. But it provided so many benefits, such as more focused time, more intentional time in meetings. I was much more strategic. It was a better use of my time. But I did not want people to think that I was unresponsive.
Right.
So I had the conversation and I said, I'm trying to be much more strategic with my time and much more intentional. So I'm actually only going to be in email 3 times a day. So if you have something that's urgent, please text me, right?
Mm.
Like if it is something that needs to be handled within the hour, please text me.
Mhm.
And it took a little bit of like a learning curve, but it worked. Now, I taught that same strategy to another client of mine,
Mhm.
and she actually took it a step further, which I thought was fantastic. But she actually put up an out of office email, like
Yes.
that pops back to say, thanks for your email. I am here today, but I only check email 3 times a day. So, and like here are the
Mhm.
times. You will hear back from me within, and then you set the parameters 24, 48 hours, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And she actually lived by that. But then that clearly set that expectation for every single person that was trying to get in her email inbox that you were not going to get an immediate response.
Mhm.
So I would say have those conversations so that y'all are on the same page.
Absolutely. No matter the relationship, the employment, the friend group, the community, having clear expectations prevents a whole lot of resentment.
God, anywhere, your marriage, your friendships, everywhere.
Right. Okay, so speaking of that, how's your husband doing with you having this successful podcast, leaving corporate, having this book? Like, how's all that balance going?
Oh my gosh. Well, that you want to talk about like that's a whole other sticky floor, right? Because I had my own sticky floors about leaving corporate. My husband has his own sticky floors
Mhm.
about me leaving corporate. And so thankfully he's been very supportive. I definitely think, not I think, I know that he has financial fears. Like
Okay.
that's just him. That is who he is. I am one of those, like, I trust that the money will come, that the clients will come, that the gigs will come, and money flows through me kind of vibe, right?
Mhm.
He is that person. He's like, it's tax season. We're all broke. Like, we're all poor. We're all eating ramen noodles. So it's just who he is. So, but I think he's also proud of me because from leaving corporate to now, like the amount of gigs and clients that have come through just because I've created the space for them to do so, like
Mhm.
shows that it's there. So I think
Mhm.
he's doing a good job of managing those fears by not expressing them too much to me because again, expectation setting, I told him I didn't want to hear it. I told him that I was a rich ass woman making a lot of money. And guess what? One day I will be.
You'll be a sugar mama. That's
That's
fine.
right. Again, because I was before. I'll do it again. It'll just be a different way.
That's right. That's the ebbs and flows of a relationship too, and supporting each
Amen.
other on the journey. That's funny. I think that having the yin and yang in a relationship, though, the person who is like scarcity mindset, ramen noodles, with the person who's like, we can do big hard things, probably creates its own set of friction, but also just a good balance. If you both were like, let's go all in and both quit, that wouldn't work, right? And if you both stayed locked up in jobs you hated because you have scarcity mindset, you're both miserable.
Yeah. And because he's always like, oh my God, we have no money, even though like I was making stupid amounts of money, guess what? I had a good cushion in my savings to fall
Yes.
back on because of Mr. Ramen Noodles, you know?
I love that. I love it. Okay, so you're home now at 3 o'clock when the kids get off the bus. What's that like? How's that changed? How's that feeling in the house?
Oh my God, it's so much calmer, Pamela.
Mm.
Like, because before I was trying to like be on a call and figure out a math problem for like a
Yeah.
third grader, you know? So now they get to come home, we sit through our homework, we get it done. I can be fully focused and present, which number one means we get it done faster for them. They feel better about it. I feel better about it. And then we kind of just do whatever we want to do. Like, do we want to play? Do we want to go somewhere? Do we have a sporting event? Do we want to cook a big dinner? Like, what do we want to do? And it just allows me to be more present. And they're 6 and they're 9 years old. It is not lost on me that that time is going to fly. And I know your kids are older, so you're probably like, yes, it is, Erica. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to make the most of it. Like, I don't know. They're already 6 and 9.
I know.
How?
Yeah, I mean, my journey's my journey and yours is yours, and hindsight's 2020. I would say though, having the opportunity to take that pause and be more strategic with how you use your time and your energy while your kids are young is just a huge gift that you can give yourself and your kids. Now we can't all do that, and mine are much older, 19, 16, and 14. But creating that space for them, I think, is a beautiful gift. I know for me, whether or not I was off at 3 o'clock, if my kid comes to me with a homework problem, I tell them Google is a great resource or we're going to get a tutor. Because about third grade is where I was like, you know what, your math is kind of complicated. If I can't solve it in a spreadsheet, it's not happening here from me. But, and
Standard deviation just showed back up, and I'm like having nightmares.
it gets worse.
I don't even want to think about it, Pamela, because I struggled with math. Math is not my strong point. I'm over there counting up like this.
I do. I
But
do.
again, thank God for Google because I rely on her to help me with some of their questions already.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, my one kid does debate, and I'm like, let's do speeches all day long. We'll have constructive. You read it, we talk about it. Like, let's do that all day. But the math go away.
It's
Okay,
got
so
to go.
let's talk about math and statistics because you, my friend, you and I are lockstep on tracking statistics and what's happening in the world. So I know your platform is built a lot on creating gender equality, specifically in the workplace. So, what are you seeing with women who are coming to you? What are you seeing in the workplace? And what ceilings do we have to smash?
So one of the questions on my podcast that I ask every single guest of mine is, what is that one piece of advice you would give your younger self? And I ask it because I think it's so insightful. It's a really great way to look back and kind of reflect on what lessons you had to learn
Mhm.
and what you wish you already knew. And so when I think back to that question, the answer that is the most common, which is also the most heartbreaking, is I wish I knew my worth. I would tell her to know her worth. And that breaks my heart, because I understand it. But man, I think about it through the lens of my daughter, and I'm sure you do too with a 14-year-old, it's like I hope she knows her worth. I hope she knows how amazing and beautiful and talented she is and how much she can still grow and learn, but how enough she already is. And I think that still is the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems, because if we don't know our worth, we're not going to lean in, we're not going to raise our hand, and we're not going to speak up. And I
Mhm.
think often women don't truly know and value their worth, sometimes until they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s.
Right.
And so I think if we can really focus on knowing their worth, because what happens then is we fill that cup of unworthiness with things that we think will make us worthy, such as a clean email box, such
Mhm.
as a perfectly curated dinner, right? Such as volunteering for all of your kids' things, even though you need some rest.
Mhm.
And so we still have those sticky floors like burnout, which are causing women to leave corporate America, right? We have the issues like perfectionism, which keeps women from applying for the jobs because they don't meet 100% of the criteria that's
Right.
outlined in there. But that overarching one of really knowing your worth is the biggest issue that I typically tackle in my coaching experience.
Mhm. It's really tricky because there's so much mindset and belief behind that, right? And I think we could say at this surface level, we could all agree it's a worthiness thing. And then as you dig in, it's what is my belief about myself? What was I told as a child? What do I see around me? Do I see women looking in the mirror and pinching every inch and saying they're not good enough? Mothers, sisters, aunts, whatever. Do I see my mom speaking up in a house when something is out of place or there's something going on? Or do I see that represented at work? There's so many things from our environment and the social media that we consume, and for us back in the day, like the television that we consumed, that built this cup of not enough-ness. And so figuring out how to like throw the cup away, right? Like not even just fill it, not not pretend it's not there, but just pick the cup up and throw it away because it's useless. That's really hard work. It takes a lot of intentionality. And I think those are very much the sticky floors, right, Erica? And the glass ceilings are to the statistic you mentioned a second ago. If you only apply for a job if you feel like you're 100% qualified for it, but a man will apply at 60% qualification, you're going to have a hard time getting to that spot. You're taking yourself out of the race before you even had a chance.
Mm-hmm.
If you are statistically less likely to speak up in a boardroom because you're a woman and there's more men, you are never going to have your voice heard. So I'm going to say something you normally wouldn't hear me say. So much of creating equality is going to have to come down to having male allies who
Mm-hmm.
open doors, who encourage women to step into the roles and to try new things, who say, "Hey, Erica, you're sitting there, and I could see the tons of thoughts are running through your head. What do you want to add to this?" Just having people like that are in a position of authority and respect already, opening doors and encouraging women would be wonderfully helpful. And then all the women like running full steam ahead, like you and I, who are like, "Hey, sister, here's a hand. Let me straighten your crown. Let me pull you up." Is great as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've had a few advocates in my life. I won't say like a fair share because it hasn't been a fair share, but I have had one or two true advocates who have said, I am bringing Erica into this room, and truly brought me into rooms that I didn't need to be there. It wasn't a must do for me, but that advocate knew that by having my presence there, it would make a difference. And he actually explained to me, he's like, you do these things sometimes because this is a game of chess. Like, don't just think about it as this one outcome that you're looking for.
Mhm.
And so, my advocate that I just love and respect so deeply, his name is Andy. And he was my VP of HR. This was many, many years ago. And he was moving into a different role, which meant his VP role was wide open. And he came to me and he's like, you need to apply for that role. I was like, you are so full of it. Like, that is hilarious. Thank you very much. But there are three directors, one of who I actually report to, that I know is going to apply for your job. So, like, why would I, and 20-something-year-old woman, go up against a 50-something-year-old man who is already above? What are you even talking about? Like, thought he was totally full of it. And he had a conversation with me. He's like, Erica, it's not always about getting the job. He's like, but by you interviewing for this position, you will be put in front of other senior leaders, the CEO, the SVP of global HR, and you're going to signal to them that you want to grow.
Mm.
And you're going to have an opportunity for an audience. So don't look at this as I'm not going to get the job, because you might not, right? You might not. But it's going to signal to others the growth that you want.
Mhm.
Flash forward, I did not get the job. I was the second runner up for that role.
Wow.
So that alone I was like, well, that's a win. But then also, I am still very tight with the CEO that I interviewed with to this day. And he doesn't even work at that company anymore.
Mm.
It's like, wow, okay, we got to start looking at this totally differently and like think about the different possibilities. Don't just think about that one traditional outcome. And that was a huge game changer for me.
Mhm. Yeah, you had that moment of, who am I to do this? So speaking of that unworthiness piece, and then somebody come along and say that's trash. We're going to take that away. That thought's gone. But you also spoke to, now you're currently networking still with the CEO. So can we pivot to that? Women in networking.
Mm,
It's pretty tricky for women when so much of the networking events are on a golf course after hours when we're trying to feed our kids or put them in baths, at cigar bars, places that are seen as traditionally male dominated, right?
yeah.
So, how do women get those networking opportunities to get exposure to C-suite or executives because they want to move up without showing up in places that don't feel comfortable to them?
I think we're starting to see a little shift. At least I like to think we are, away from some of those places. I don't think it's because the C-suite and the male leaders want to, but I think they're recognizing that like my ass is going to get called to the carpet if I have this at a strip club. Like we can't do that anymore. But you have to make networking work for you. And being a mom with two little kids, like it was impossible for me to do these after hour work events because you know the drill. It's like dinner, bath, bed, done. And even if I do arrange for my partner to do it, then he's got to do it all by himself. And what if he has an event? And what if one of my two children has a sporting thing? Then I have to call in a babysitter. It's too much. So
Mhm.
do networking events that work for you. So I've been able to do the research, reach out, and find different events that are hosted during school hours. And people love coming to those. And C-suite leaders love coming to those because they're getting paid to go to the events. So why not?
Yeah.
They're making their salary. And so I would show up at these types of events, but then I would also do my own networking, right? Like it doesn't have to be traditional.
Mhm.
And I would say be very intentional. Use LinkedIn as a great place to target people to reach out and say, like, hey, I've been following you. You're doing a lot of great stuff on LinkedIn. I was very interested in boom. And then you insert something they did. I'd love to have a quick coffee chat with you if you'd be open to it over Zoom. And that's all it takes,
Mhm.
right? You can cultivate some really amazing relationships just over Zoom. I mean, Pamela, you and I've never met in person, but I know I could call on you in a minute
Yep.
to really help me with anything,
Mhm.
and you would do it.
Yeah.
So again, and this is one of my favorite quotes here, but like the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And so that's why like it's so easy to blow off some of these networking things and be like, "Oh, I'll do it later, whatever." But you need to do it now because you're going to need that network at some point. And so always make time to just intentionally connect even if you don't have anything you need, right? Sometimes we only network when we need something. Network when you don't need something. That's actually a lot more genuine and more authentic.
I love that. I think you hit that right on the head. Reaching out to people in LinkedIn and being able to say, hey, how are you? I saw you do this, like encouraging what they're doing without it being an immediate ask, I think is a huge relationship builder. And I would, if you needed anything, I would be there to support
I
you.
know.
Not because we've met in person, but because you've been very intentional to build a relationship and build community with me. And that goes such a long way. And so I love that you're saying you don't have to show up at the golf course or whatever that place might be. And I am hoping that we continue to see a shift towards more inclusive networking opportunities. But if you're intentional with building relationships, that goes a long way. It goes a long way for building your brand. So people who are in rooms that you're not in will speak nicely on your behalf, but also building a relationship with somebody as you're having a chance to connect with them.
Yeah. And get to know the people in your community. I was just at a conference the other day and they gave a number. I can't really remember how many it was, but they talked about how many millionaires there are in the world. And it was a huge number. And she said, she was like, these people are walking amongst you. Like there are plenty of very powerful people standing behind you at the coffee shop.
Mhm.
So like, how are you networking? How are you showing up every single day in the world? Because opportunity is everywhere, right? Like even if you just go to a Starbucks to sit, there might be somebody who is looking to share a table with you. I don't know. I probably wouldn't ask you to sit down because if I'm at the Starbucks, I'm by myself, but you get my drift.
No, I love that. That's awesome. Okay, what is your favorite topic to speak on? You do all kinds of speeches now. So like what's the thing that gets you excited?
The thing that gets me excited, I have a favorite one that I talk about, but it's all about infinite possibilities. And the reason I talk about infinite possibilities and I love it is this talk originally started for only women. And most of the work that I do is women specific. But I then took my talk and I made it an all talent talk. And that is my infinite possibilities talk. And what I talk about in that speech is how every single one of us was put on this earth with a purpose. What we think, though, our purpose is something else. To be a mom, to be an amazing executive. We think my purpose is to raise a great child, right? A lot of people have different ideas of what their purpose is.
Mhm.
But your real purpose is you. You are the purpose. Like you are the purpose for being here. You are here with unique talents.
Mhm.
Every single one of our fingerprints, right? Think about this, is unique,
Right.
right? We have 10 fingers, 10 unique fingerprints, and there are 8.3 billion people in the world.
Mhm.
That is like infinite possibilities kind of number. So if that can happen, what kind of possibilities can you unlock if you only allow yourself to dream and to do it? And I love it because it's kind of this whole idea of like nobody is special, but everybody is special kind of thing. Because when you look at the change makers in the world and like Taylor Swift, There's nothing special about Taylor Swift. She grew up at a Christmas tree farm and her family moved to Nashville and rode around in their station wagon trying to hand out her cassette tape.
Hmm.
Nothing special about that, right? Except for the fact that she did it. Oprah Winfrey was told she was too ugly, too fat, not good for television. Look where she is now. LeBron James came from the projects, right? So, like, there's nothing special, yet every one of us is special.
Hmm.
So that's kind of my favorite topic because I just want everybody to know whatever your situation is, wherever you are coming from, whether you are in a toxic relationship or a bad work culture, or you just feel so stuck, you don't know that there's anything that could be done to change your life,
Right.
to recognize that, these things, they might not work out. But oh my God, what if they do? You know?
Hmm.
And that possibility is there.
Hmm. I love that so much. And what if they don't work out, but you fail forward into the next thing that you didn't even imagine possible for you? That
Well,
is,
and the trick is everything works out, right? Like that's the spoiler alert. Think about the gift of hindsight.
Mhm.
Think about that first boyfriend, that first love you ever had, Pamela. Like, I don't know about you. Oh, I was heartbroken over Tyler Clark. He was my high school crush. I would have bet $1 million. I would have bet anything that we would have been married with 2.5 babies, right?
Mhm.
Gift
Tyler
of
Clark.
hindsight. Gift of hindsight, I would not be married to the amazing man that I have today, who is my huge supporter, and I would not have the two kids I had. I would not have this life, you know? But we don't have the gift of hindsight every day. And so we have to really kind of lean in and recognize that one day we will have the gift of hindsight, and one day we will be able to recognize that everything works out exactly as it should.
I love that. And it's kind of taking this idea of in the middle of a hard time, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, why is this happening for me? Because
Yes.
the
And that
for
is a
everything.
huge mindset shift.
Hmm.
Huge. And I love that you say that. I say it all the time
Hmm.
because nothing, I do believe that nothing in life happens to you, it happens for you.
Hmm. Your reaction is everything. Like how you react to something, your response, whether it's to get angry, to get sad, to get quiet, to get however you respond to it is going to be an indicator and an input into what happens next. So yeah, when you think about why is this happening for me instead of to me, it helps you shift your response to something.
Well, and knowing that like you are responsible for your actions and your thoughts, you're not
Yeah.
responsible for anything else. And so, even if you have that negative thought or that limiting belief thought, like it does not have to be your first thought.
Hmm.
So, choose a different path, choose a different thought, pivot it, right? Get that reframe, whatever it is you want to do. But just recognize that you have that control over
Hmm.
your actions and what you are saying to yourself. And recognizing that sometimes those first thoughts don't have to be our last thoughts.
Absolutely. And that those first thoughts might not even be true thoughts. And so challenging those thoughts are just thoughts, right? They're not facts. They're just things we think. You can
They're
challenge.
things we think, and we are, as humans, more likely to believe the negative. Like there is a thing called negativity bias. And I
Yes.
saw the best video on social media the other day, like TikTok or something, and it had a woman standing in between two big jars. And you put an M&M in each jar. One jar was for all of the positive things, right? So Pamela, you're amazing. You've got the best hair I've ever seen. You're a great mom. But then we're going to drop something in the
Oh yeah.
bucket, in the limiting belief bucket, something you believe about yourself. Maybe you don't believe you're tall enough or thin
Mhm.
enough or smart enough or whatever.
Mhm.
One little M&M in there. But again, amazing things about Pamela. And the amazing compliment bucket was filled with M&Ms. And then the negative bucket had one little thing in there. And the woman stopped and she looked at both buckets and then she crashed the bucket filled with M&Ms to the floor and took the one bucket with the one negative comment and just hugged it in close. And it was such a powerful visual for 100% what we do and how our brains are wired to look for the negative. I mean, think about any performance review you had, right? Your boss probably tells you 10 great things and then one area to work on, and that's the only thing you focus on.
Mhm.
So we really have to start recognizing that we do that. That's natural, it's biology, but we
Yeah.
can work to change that.
Mhm. Yes, it's meant to keep us safe, but it also keeps us small. So
Hmm.
totally agree. Like, what is the negativity bias? What's the loop that we have on repeat? And then how do we break through that? Because you're meant for more. You have infinite possibilities to use your words.
Heck yeah, girl. Heck yeah.
I love that. I love that. Okay, what should we expect from your book when it comes out on the 12th?
Oh, life-changing experiences, right? No, I mean, here's what to expect. It is a super relatable story about what went on in my life growing up through corporate, but also all of these other women who were just like you and me telling their stories. And what I really wanted to get out of this book was I wanted other women to be able to sit down and recognize that they're not alone in some of these things. But I also wanted them to know that there are ways out of every single one of those things.
Mhm.
Whatever that limiting belief, toxic relationship you have stuck in your head that is on that loop, that is on
Mhm.
repeat, it doesn't have to be your life. And there is a way out of it. So inside the book, I have what I call my 4-step snap method because you can snap out of those sticky floors. You like what I did there?
I love it.
But it stands for stop and take note of the physical sensations in the body, name your sticky floor, ask and answer some deep and personal questions about why do I think what I think? Is this thought helpful? Is this thought true? And then the P is for pivoting, which is simply your reframe.
Mhm.
And I have it set up in that specific order because often these limiting beliefs that we have, you're not going to just have and be like, oh my gosh, I have a limiting belief. Oh, let me change that thought, right? Like you experience physical symptoms, honestly, sometimes before you even recognize that you're having the thought,
Mhm.
whether that is a racing heart, or maybe you have like cold fingers or clammy hands, or maybe you're sweating or tapping your foot. Like your body keeps score. There's a book called The Body Keeps Score. It's all about trauma. It's not what I'm talking about, but your body knows what's up.
Mhm.
And then the second step in naming the sticky floor is so powerful because once you name what that is, you can actually take ownership of it and you can start to take your power back.
Mhm.
And that's when you get into the third step of asking and answering some deep and personal questions. And my two favorite I already gave you, is this helpful? Is this true?
Yeah.
Usually the answer is no
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
both of those. Sometimes the answer can be yes, but then you still dig deeper and you ask yourself why things are the way they are. And you try to get to the root cause because when you understand yourself, when you
Mhm.
understand why you think these thoughts, then you can actually start to do things to combat those thoughts. And that's where the final P, pivot step, comes into play from I don't have to I get to,
Right.
from this will never happen for me to this could potentially happen, right? From a life of scarcity to abundance, from one way forward to infinite possibilities.
Mm.
So that's kind of the book in a nutshell. I'm really, really excited and proud about it. Mel Robbins endorsed it. It was featured in Success Magazine, which was like a huge, like, oh my God moment for me.
Huge.
Um, yeah, so it's good. I tell people it's good stuff, right? Like Mel Robbins doesn't just endorse anything. It's good stuff. But I love it. I love the concept of, the only ceilings that really exist are the ones we place over ourselves. And
Mm.
it's natural to do so, right? Like I have ceilings that I have over my head right now, about what I can charge or how many, speaking engagements I could realistically get in a year. I have those ceilings too. So the work to break through these sticky floors, it's never done.
Mhm.
You just get better at handling it.
I love that. I love that so much. I want to just challenge what you said because it struck me. And I know that you know the answer to this because of all the research you've done. I've always thought the sticky floors were ours, our limiting beliefs, our thoughts about things. But the glass ceiling has often felt like it's a system. But I just heard you say like the glass ceiling is also our thoughts, our like our making. So can you tell me more about the glass ceiling being our thoughts and our making versus being systemic patriarchy?
Yeah. Well, and I will say this, like the systems are real,
Mhm.
like there are microaggressions, there's bias, there's harassment, there's discrimination. And I've had people criticize my work saying that like that's not what I've addressed and that's what needs to be addressed. And I do not disagree with that statement. I think that we do need to go after the systems. But what I know about that is that it takes generations
Yeah.
and decades to change systems.
Mm.
And I was not willing to wait for that. So for me, and what really brought about this book was, well, what do I have to do? Right? So that that isn't my story. What do I have to do so that I can be a C-suite executive, that I can be a great mom while being a C-suite executive? And that's when I started noticing that like I was holding myself back.
Mm.
I wasn't raising my hand. I wasn't valuing my own opinion or my own experience as much as I should. And that's when I started doing the work of like digging into the psychology and understanding the science behind it, but also understanding women's history. I
Right.
mean, when you look back and you think about like when a woman could actually have a mortgage by herself without a man,
Mhm.
think it was like 1975 or something. It was in the 70s. I
Mhm.
can't remember the exact year off the date, but I was like, okay, my husband was born in 73. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's mind-boggling.
Yes.
And so you have to understand women's history as well. But this concept of us putting ceilings on what's possible is it is physically possible for women to be in the C-suite and
Mhm.
to do it with balance. We've seen it.
Mhm.
I've done it. It's not common yet. A lot of women are leaving. I left, but it can be done, and we know this to be true. So
Right.
I always challenge people to look inward while also going after the systems because
Mhm.
it's so important. And actually, that reminded me of something I wanted to bring up earlier when you talked about male allies
Mhm.
is that we also have to have full equality for men
Yes.
before women are going to have equality too. And what I mean by that is parental leave. Like,
Mhm.
let's take a look at that. And from my own personal example, I got, oh God, and I worked for a big global company. I got 6 weeks of short-term disability. So I got 6 weeks of 60% of my pay. And
Mhm.
then the rest had to be my PTO. So I didn't use a full 12 weeks. I think my husband got 2 days. So he was pretty much like for the birth. And then we got back home and he had to go back to work, right? So
Yeah.
naturally, I took over all of the responsibilities for my child because I was home. Well,
Mhm.
then when we went back to work, when I went back to work, we didn't stop and renegotiate who was
Right.
doing what, right? And most people don't, you know?
Mhm.
And then you have another kid, and then you just add that on there, and then things just get crazy and women are constantly overloaded. But guess what? Like he was not at home learning the ins and outs of my son, right? Like he didn't know, how he took his bottle, and it wasn't because he wasn't involved, but it was because he had to go to work
Right.
to support his wife that was only getting 60% of her pay.
Mhm.
So until the men get the same level of, I should say, crappy treatment that women get, in the workforce when it comes to things like equality, like we're never going to experience that same level of equality.
I
So
love.
sorry, I took us on a left turn there,
Oh,
but
no, I keep on that path for just a second because I feel like it's all connected. That's the systemic piece, but there's
Mhm.
also the mindset piece. So I've been in circles and I am not very good at hiding emotion on my face. So people know when I need to probably exit a conversation before I say things I shouldn't. But
I
I've been
love that.
in conversations in circles where I've heard men in the group talk about how John Doe is taking time off of work to go take his
Mm.
kids to the doctor. Like, that's so ridiculous. He needs to be in the office. He needs to be doing X, Y, and Z. That's why he's got a wife. And like my brain wanted to explode because actually that's not why you have a wife. Just so we're all clear,
Mm-mm.
you have a wife, so you have a partner and a partner
Life partner. Yeah.
equal, like partner equal, right? That's usually what that means. Um, but until we start changing the mindset and the belief system that a man's role is to provide, period, and a woman's role is to nurture, and never should the two meet unless you're a woman and you work and nurture, and then everything's expected of you, then we're going to continue to have this problem. But if the mindset could be women have the ability to be stay-at-home moms, if that's what works for their situation, so do men. And that changes things on our perception of males only being good at being providers. But men are good at so much more. So why are we limiting them?
Yeah.
Women can make money, men can make money. Women can take care of kids, men can take care of kids. We can meet somewhere in the middle too. But if we don't start changing those mindsets, the laws and the policies don't change.
Yeah, well, and what's so interesting about that is because men really do go through the same thing that we do, but on the flip side of it. Because imagine you're a stay-at-home dad with two little kids and you're trying to arrange play dates to go to the park. Well, everybody else is a stay-at-home mom. They're not going to invite the dad. That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're excluded. That is the same way women feel when you're talking about the cigar bar or wherever, right?
Yes.
So like it still exists on both sides, which is why it's so important to talk about equality from both angles because it's just a different side of the coin, but we're still both experiencing really all the bullshit. I don't know what other way to put it.
Yes. Oh, I love this conversation so much, and I think it's so important. There was a reel I saw, and I'm thinking about my response to it. This woman said she is a submissive housewife and she loves it, and all you liberal feminists can go pound sand, basically. Not quite as nice. And she put in the caption, she likes to make her husband sandwiches for lunch and lay his clothes out in the morning. And all I could think of is like, this isn't a fight. Feminism isn't battle of the sexes, it's equality and same rights for the sexes. So like if a woman wants to be a quote unquote her word submissive housewife, like cool, you do
Go do
that.
it.
Like if that's what makes you and your partner happy, I love that for you. And if you want to go to work and work out of the house and make money, I love that for you. If we stopped pitting all of these people and belief systems against each other and we just said, what works best for you and your family? Cool. I like
Well,
that.
and that's the thing is like this need to be right about it, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like you can be right for you and I can be right for me. It's fine.
Mhm.
But it's this need to be right. And it's what I hate about society is when we get into this all or nothing mentality, you know, and I hate to say it, but it's election season and that is what we are seeing all over the news. It's just, and
Titan.
it's like, y'all, we live in a world that is filled with shades of gray and a million other colors. It
Mhm.
is not black and white and it isn't that simple. And if you know, knock your socks off, lay out your husband's clothes. For me, I married a man, not a child. That's my perspective. But again, you do you.
I think it's whatever makes you happy. And there's been times, earlier in my marriage with that would have delighted me. I used to get up every morning at like 4 a.m. and make him breakfast and send him off on his day. And that was great. And then I was like, oof, this is 2 years later. I'm exhausted. Like I can't keep this up. But it's, we're all different in different places in our relationships and our
Mhm.
expectations. I would just say to your point, for anybody who is thinking in absolutes and only with the mindset and perspective to be right, they probably need to take a page from your book literally and snap out of it. Just stop.
Amen. Amen. Because,
Amazing. Think about
like,
it.
why are you so worried about what other people are doing, anyways? And that's always my question. And, I have to remind myself that too, because again, as humans, it's so easy for us to judge. I just did it when I said I married a man, not a child. Like, it's ingrained in us, I would
Mhm.
never say it to that woman.
Mhm.
But that's the truth. We all make these snap judgments. And so we have to always be doing the work.
Yes, I love that. I am always doing the work, especially during election season as it's bringing up all kinds of heightened senses. So, Erica, I love having you here. Where can everybody find you? How do people work with you?
Oh my gosh, please visit my website. It's just www.ericaandersonrooney.com. From there, you can connect with all of my socials. I'm most popular on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I give away a lot of amazing free stuff on there. Those are all on my websites, like success planners and amazing book lists that you have to read before the year is over, which not quite because there's only like 2 months, but they're good books to put on your Christmas list.
Mhm.
And buy my book. Like that is the biggest thing right now is I want to get this book in as many hands as possible, Pamela, because my goal for this book is that when my 6-year-old daughter is old enough, she can sit there and say, "What the hell is this? Like,
Mhm.
what the hell is this book?" And I will be able to say, "We did the work. It's irrelevant now."
You don't have to wait 134 years for gender pay equality. Yay.
Amen. Amen.
I love that. Okay, I like to leave this podcast by asking the guest, what's your favorite quote?
Ooh. I have so many favorite quotes that I love, but the one that is really resonating with my heart right now is the pressure is always a privilege.
I just saw that today on
Really?
Instagram. Oddly enough, I don't even follow this gentleman, but on a Danny Amendola real post because it was something from Dancing with the Stars. How random is this world? I saw that and I saved it because I was like, damn, that's a good one.
Well, look, and we can't even blame that on the algorithm, like that's just us talking. So that is
Right.
something in there is a sign for you, Pamela. Something in there is a sign.
I'm telling you, I love when the universe does these kind of fun things. Thank you so much for being here. It was great to catch up with you. I'm so glad everybody gets to hear your voice. I hope they buy your book and can reach out to you at any time. Go check out our Instagram. You do a great job of showing us how to blend parenthood and working and bringing out the passions and interests that you have and creating infinite possibility.
Oh my God. Well, Pamela, thanks for having me. This was just a bright spot in my day. As always, great to chat with you.